Okay, good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? How are you? Are you fine? Oh, good afternoon. So come on, how are you? Tell me how you are. So I'm going to say, I am great today. I'm great today. I don't know why. I'm great every day. I am great today. Pretty good. Wow. Anybody else? How are you all feeling? Come on, let me look. Oh, slow responses. Let me get some light in this room. Wow, I am great too. Oh, good. Not bad. Actually, I'm just looking out of my window and there's some big storm clouds on the way. I think there's going to be a really big storm. Yeah, a normal day. Oh dear, that doesn't sound very exciting. So yeah, there's going to be a big storm here. How is the weather where you are? Wow, my terrible typing. Yeah, there's going to be a big storm here. It's looking very ominous. That's a good look. Here's a good word. Ominous. Ominous means something bad is going to happen. It's looking very ominous. How is the weather where you are? Oh, it's hot. Hot. Wow. Super. Super hot. How many Celsius is super hot? 40? You know, it's interesting because I'm from, as you all know, so hot. As you know, I'm from the UK, and the UK generally is quite a cool country. It's not really a cold country, although sometimes the winter can be quite long, but it never gets super cold. It never gets like -20. The coldest it will get in the UK in winter is maybe -2, -3. And in summer, the highest is usually in the high 20s. And so Britain is a cool country. And so we don't have aircon. It's not necessary. We have the opposite, of course. We have heating because it's hot. It's cold for 6 months of the year. And this year in the UK, it's been almost 40 Celsius. And of course, where you live, you probably have aircon, so you can cool down in the middle of the day. But in the UK, we don't have any aircon. So this year, people are really struggling because it's very hot and there's no way to go to escape from the heat. Strange, yeah? Strange. Okay, good. So today we're going to look at speaking part 2. We've already looked at speaking part 1. So today we're going to look at speaking part 2. Now, as you know, in speaking part 2, you have to speak for 1 to 2 minutes on a topic. Before you think, you've got 1 minute to think, and the examiner will give you a pencil and some paper to write on. This is exactly what the examiner will say. The examiner will say, in this part of the test, I'd like you to talk on a topic for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you have got 1 minute you've got 1 minute to think, and you can make notes if you wish. Here is a pencil, and here is a piece of paper to help you. Then the examiner will read the topic. blah 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 blah. And then the examiner will say, do you understand? And you always say yes, because then the examiner will give you the question. You don't have to remember the question because they will give you a written copy of the question. Now, in writing part 2, when the examiner gives you the written copy, you will notice there are usually 4 or 5 parts with a bullet point. So you must try to answer every part of the question. Now at the bottom of the question, there will be another line which does not have a bullet. It doesn't have the dot. I'll show you later. And many people miss off that bit. No. Try to answer every part of the question. Don't leave off the last part at the bottom, because you get a lot of marks for task achievement. And if you miss off part of the question, you're not answering all of the question. So try to answer every part of the question. And as I've already said, you have 2 minutes to answer the topic. Now, if you're still talking after 2 minutes, the examiner will say, thank you, and they will stop you. That's not a bad thing. Don't worry. The examiner stops you merely because you've had the time allocated. Don't worry if the examiner stops you, as long as you've answered the question. If you finish before the 2 minutes are up, it's really important that you let the examiner know you have finished. Don't just stop. Don't do this. Blah, 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 blah. Because the examiner doesn't know if you finished. And you have kind of an embarrassing silence. So when you've finished, let the examiner know you finished. You could just say blah, 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 blah. Thank you. Blah, 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 blah. That's the end of my presentation. It doesn't matter what you say, but let the examiner know you've finished speaking, and the examiner can then go on to part 3. Just one more thing before we look at some part 2. When you have finished speaking, the examiner is told to give a little remark, and sometimes it's a bit crazy. So they might say, oh, that sounds like a very interesting holiday. Or, oh, that's really good story. They will just give a little remark when you've finished your speaking. There's no meaning in it at all. It's just the examiner is told to give this little remark after the end of your test. Now, one more thing. You must speak for more than 1 minute. If you don't, you've blown the test. Now, many people are very nervous and they speak very quickly, and they finish after 30 seconds. So there's this long, embarrassing gap, and you've blown the test. You must try to speak. You must go over 1 minute. For me, the perfect time is 1 minute 45, 1 minute 50 seconds. Then when you finish, say, thank you. And then the examiner has listened. They can give you a mark. So don't speak for less than 1 minute under any circumstances. Aim for 1 minute 45, 1 minute 50 seconds. If you go over 2 minutes, don't worry. If the examiner stops you, don't worry. Good, now let's move on to slide 2. Now, some of the topics you may have to talk about. Now, oh, by the way, no, I'm just going to write a note because I want to remind me to tell you something. Just give me one moment. Okay, I just have written myself some notes because I want to tell you something before we go too far. Now, some of the topics you've got to talk about. As you can see on the slide, you've got to talk a book, a movie program, a movie, or a TV program. You've got about a time when you did something. It could be a time when you got help from someone, a time when you worked very hard to achieve a goal, a time when you give someone some advice. Very common topics is a time when you were very happy, or a time when you were very sad, or a time when you were very nervous. For younger candidates, it's often good to talk about a time when you're at school. You were happy when you passed an exam. You were nervous before an exam. You were sad because you failed an exam. So it's about a time when you did something. And obviously, this is going to be past tense. So make sure you get your tense correct. Now, you might have to talk about a place or a building you have visited. Now, remember yesterday when we were talking about part 1, sometimes you have to describe your house. Not your family, not your dog. And sometimes it's the same in part 2. You've got to talk about a place you visited. Now, what the examiner wants is a clear description of the place, of the building. Lots and lots of description. So after the end of your talk, the examiner has got a clear picture in their mind of the place you are talking about. Students skip too quickly. You can describe something for hours. Describe in detail a place you visited. Don't skip over it. Don't worry about going into too much detail. It's a good thing. A sports event, a family occasion, a happy day. These are all very common topics. The next one is a person you admire. Now, many people, when they answer this question, they talk about a member of their family. Now, that's a good answer because most people admire their parents, and you've got, a lot of information about your parents. So if you're talking about a person you admire, it's very easy to talk about your mother or your father. An object or thing you really like, you bought recently, you would like to own. On this topic, a lot of the students find it difficult to speak for 2 minutes. So again, use detailed description. Say exactly what the thing is, what it does, what it looks like. Describe it in detail. And you'll find you get over 1 minute very quickly. And there's a note at the bottom. Remember your tenses. If the question is, talk about a time when you did something, it must be past tense. A place you would like to visit, it's not past tense. It's using terms like I would like to, because, whatever. Get your tense correct. So read the question very carefully and get your tense correct. So there are some common topics for part 2. Now, I'm just going to stop a minute because some of the worst answers I hear are what you would think would be the easiest question. I'm going to type this. I'm going to type it. Now, some of the worst answers I get, the examiner will say, can you tell me about a book you read recently? The examiner will say, can you tell me something that's happened in the news recently? Or the examiner will say, tell me about a movie you have seen recently. The students seem to find this very difficult because they're under stress and they can't think. And they're thinking, oh God, what movie, what book? And they really have difficulty talking for over 1 minute about this topic. So my advice is, before your test, prepare a talk on a book or a movie. Get it ready. Don't try to do it in the exam room, because of stress, students find it difficult to talk. They're difficult to remember. Now, the news. Now, as you know, many people these days don't read the news. They don't read the newspaper. So when the topic comes, tell me about an item of news, the student finds it very difficult because they haven't read a newspaper. So, the day before your exam, read a newspaper. It can be online, it could be a hard copy, but read a newspaper the day before your test and find an item of news which is easy to talk about. Don't talk about something horrible like murder or death or killing. Talk about maybe a sports event, a festival, something quite easy to talk about. But the day before your test, read the news and prepare. Prepare a movie you've seen. Prepare a book you've read. Now, when you talk about a book, it can be any book. It doesn't have to be a novel. It could be a textbook, a book you use in university. It could be a novel. Don't talk about a magazine, because a magazine and a book are not the same. Now, possibly one of the worst answers I get is the last one, an advertisement. The examiners might say, tell me about an advertisement you have seen recently. Or they might say, tell me about an advertisement for a skin product you have seen recently. And the students can't think. So, before your exam, the day before, have a look around. Look at a few advertisements and prepare a 1 to 2 minute talk about an advertisement. And you describe in detail the advertisement, where you saw it, when you saw it, what it is an advertisement for, and then you describe in detail the picture. So the examiner's got the picture in their mind. And when you do an advertisement, finish by saying, was it a good advertisement or was it a bad advertisement? If it's good, you want to buy the product. If it's bad, it's confusing, you don't know what the product is, or you don't want to buy the product. So there's 4 topics where you get very poor responses from the students. So the day before your exam, spend a little bit of time preparing those 4 topics. Good. Any questions so far? Any questions? When you're typing, I'll have a drink of water. No questions? Well, we'll move on. Now, how do you answer the question? Now, remember, you've got a pen and you've got a piece of paper. You must get ready for your 2 minutes talk. Now, as you say, you know some of the topics that are going to come up. and the same topics come up over and over again. They might not look the same, but when you look closely, you'll notice a lot of the topics are very similar. And we've gone through some of the topics. The book, the film, the television program, clothes, piece of music, object, place you visited, special day, people you like, etc., etc. By the way, let me just type something here. A very, very common topic is about the environment. The examiner might say, tell me about an environmental problem in your city. Most Chinese students talk about air pollution. Fine. But the examiner might say, tell me about an environmental problem affecting the world. So don't talk about your city, talk about the whole world. It's interesting how we hear so much news about global warming. And a lot of the questions about environmental problems affecting the world are about global warming. So it wouldn't do any harm just the day before your test to quickly look into what is global warming, what causes it, what are the effects. Because it's strange how many students give poor answers on this topic, when we read so much news about global warming. Now, you've got 1 minute. You must plan. Now, there are two broad mistakes that people make in this 1 minute. Some candidates get their pencil and they try to write a 2-minute speech. And I see them writing. And in 1 minute, you cannot write very much. And so the students will say, so they've had 1 minute and they've written. And the students will say, I'm going to talk about an environmental problem in my city. The biggest environment. And they've reached the end of what they've written. And they stop speaking. Some students do that. Some students do nothing. They look into space, hum a song, particularly younger students from international schools. They're so confident, they don't plan. And then when they start speaking, after 30 minutes, they run out of time. So don't be overconfident. It's very stressful talking to a stranger for 2 minutes. You must plan. You've got a pen and you've got a piece of paper. Now, how do you plan? I'm typing. You write on your paper some words which are going to help you answer the question. Now, I advise my students to always answer. Again, I'm typing. This should be on your piece of paper. When, where, why, what, who. These are the questions you should be answering. Yeah? And if you've got these first keywords, 1, 2, 3, 5 keywords on your piece of paper, have I missed anything else? When, where, why, what, who. This is going to help you to get past the 1 minute mark. Because you've written when. You put your finger on when and you talk for 10 seconds about when. When you've done that, you go on to where. Put your finger on where. Talk about 10 seconds for where. When you finish, put why. Why did you do it? Talk about 10 seconds on why. Who? Who did you do it with? 10 seconds. What did you do? You've immediately got, oh, that's the word I missed. Yes. Thank you for that. I was wondering which word I'd missed. And how. Now there, if you talked about 10 seconds just on these topics, you've gone over 1 minute. On your piece of paper, you'd write more. You'd put when, put the date to help you, where, put who with, why did you do something. On your piece of paper, get those key words. And when you come to speaking, put your finger on the keyword and make yourself speak for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. If you speak for just 20 seconds on each topic, you've reached your 2 minutes. Yeah? So this is what you need to do. You need to get a plan. Now, because one of the mistakes people make is I'll ask them the topic, and what some students do is they'll shout random sentences at me. Each sentence makes sense, but that's all they are. They are random sentences shouted at me. There is no structure. Remember, you're getting marks for fluency, cohesion. It's got to stick together. So you've got your keywords, when you did it, where you did it, why you did it, who you were with, what you did, how you did it. You've got structure. You've got a plan, which is going to help you reach the 2 minute mark, and it's going to help you to stop being so stressed. Yeah? So, I'll emphasize, if you don't plan, you're going to start saying random sentences. There's going to be no cohesion, and you're going to lose marks. Get the plan on paper and follow it down, and you'll find it's easy. When you practice at home, practice this technique. Now, again, you're very nervous. And when you're nervous, you tend to speak very quickly. Practice putting your finger next to the keyword and making yourself speak for 20 seconds when you practice. Time yourself so you've got a good idea of how long 20 seconds is. And if you've got a plan, you'll find you can speak for 2 minutes. It's got structure, it's got coherence, you're answering the question, your mark is going to go up. Yeah? This is the basic structure. Good. And finally, if you follow this simple plan, there is logic to your 2 minute chat. You'll not be shouting random questions. By the way, I found that the younger the student, the more they tend to shout random sentences at you. As I say, the sentences are often, each sentence is very good, but there's no structure, there's no coherence. Good. Again, any questions so far? Any questions? Again, you type, I'll drink. Oh, my water's finished. Any questions? If you don't ask questions, I don't feel important. Not yet. Good. Now, here's some more points I'm making. One of the things I've emphasized for the last 3 days is speaking in a natural voice. Now, of course, you're going to practice at home. Of course you are. All good students are going to practice at home. But you've got to be very careful not to sound like you're reading something you've remembered. Because just like part 1, part 2 is a test of natural everyday English. Don't worry about complex grammar and complex vocabulary. Don't speak in formal voice. Don't give a speech. Give a chat in a normal voice, just as though you're talking to your friend. You must answer the question. If you don't answer the question, you're going to lose marks. And it's quite sad because sometimes, you get a student who they're quite good, but they've misunderstood the question or they haven't read the question properly. So read the question very carefully. Get your planning, speak in a nice, natural voice. Don't use over-complex vocabulary. Don't use over-complex grammar. Get structure and fluency. Now, here is a topic. Now, I'm just going to remind you how the test will go. The examiner will say, in this part of the test, I'd like you to talk on a topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You will have 1 minute to think, and you can make notes if you wish. Could you talk about a time when you had to work very hard to achieve a goal? You should say what the goal was, when this happened, what did you do to achieve this goal, and talk about why the goal was important for you. Do you understand? Yes. Here is a pen. Here is some paper. You have 1 minute to think. And the examiner will put on the timer. And then you will make your notes, make your plan. Now, I'd like you to all just to look at the question I've just read, because this is another common mistake people made. You will see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 parts to the question. The time you had to work hard, what the goal was, when it happened, what you did. People very often miss out the very bottom line because it's not indented. No, there is a 5th point, and talk about why the goal was important for you. There are 5 points. So try to talk about every point on that list. Get your plan, get your keywords. Talk for 20 seconds about each of the keyword. And remember, I'll type it. Get your tense correct. This is asking to talk about a time when you had to work very hard to achieve a goal. So obviously, you're talking about something in the past. It's going to be past tense. Make sure you get your tense correct, otherwise you're going to lose a lot of marks. So there's an example of a topic. And as I've mentioned before, the same topics come up over and over again. They might look different, but they're the same topics. So if you practice, if you get IELTS books, go online, find some examples of IELTS questions, practice, 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 and it will become much easier. Good. Don't forget the bottom line. Don't leave it off. Right. The next slide. I've already mentioned a lot of this. A lot of people find talking to a stranger for 2 minutes very uncomfortable. A lot of people get very embarrassed. A lot of people think, the examiner is judging them. The examiner is not judging them. The examiner is not judging you. The examiner is listening to your English and making an assessment of your English. And I know it's very difficult. I know some people find it very embarrassing talking in a second language for 2 minutes to someone they don't know. Some people find it very difficult. And when they're in that situation, they start to speak very quickly. And they stop speaking after 30 minutes. Some people are super confident and that they have no problem speaking for 2 minutes to a stranger. Yeah, it's different. People have different strategies. Unfortunately, you've only got one opportunity, so you must make yourself sound like the super confident person who can speak for 2 minutes. I know it's difficult. I wouldn't like to do it, but you must make yourself. And as I've already said it, one of the simplest ways to do it is detail. Detail. Remember, you've got your keywords. When. When. Example. I'm going to talk about a time that I was very happy. I've got my finger on when. This event happened when I was in high school. It was actually the final year of my high school. I went to Beijing No. 6 normal school, and I'd been at that school for 6 years, and it was a very difficult 6 years. And most of the time in this school, because in China school is very stressful, most of the time in that school was very stressful because we get so many subjects, so much homework. But there were some happy times, and the time that I remember the most is my graduation day. Obviously, my graduation day came at the end of my school life in Beijing Normal School No. 6. Obviously, it was the end of the week. It was a Friday. And I remember quite distinctly it was 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Blah, blah, blah. Now, what you've seen, what I've done, I'm just going into great detail. Now, this is how the time goes very quickly. Now, a nervous student would say, oh, I was happy on my graduation school and high school. They can't think of anything else to speak. Describe things. Waffle. Go on. Go off at tangents. Just keep talking. Go like this, all over the place, but on the topic. So I find it very difficult. I'm very easy. I can talk about anything because I'm naturally a very talkative person. If you're not, you must force yourself to speak detail. Give detail. It's a good thing. That's the simplest way. Now, the next line seems to be contradicting me. The top that says that you don't need to talk about every topic on the card. Well, that's true. If you speak for more than 2 minutes, the examiner will stop you. It's good. It's not a problem. If you speak for less than 2 minutes and you haven't answered every topic on the card, you're going to lose marks. As I say, in my opinion, my advice, speak for 1 minute 45, 1 minute 50 seconds, answer every question on the topic, give lots of detail, and you're going to get a good mark. Why do I say that? Because if you speak for 2 minutes and the examiner stops you, then you haven't got the complete structure to your speaking. You've been cut off. If you speak for 1 minute 45 seconds and you've answered every part of the card, you say, thank you, that's the end of my talk. You've got a nice structure. It sounds better, it's more natural. Because in real life, people just don't suddenly stop speaking halfway through a conversation. So yes, you don't have to answer every topic on the card, but try to time yourself so you're getting near to 2 minutes and you've answered every topic, including the last one. You've got lots of detail, and you're going to get a high mark. And remember, the students who are very confident speak with natural English are the students whose marks go up. It's all down to practice. Sit in front of the mirror and practice. So, one last point. In your writing and in your speaking, linking words are very important. In writing and in speaking, linking words. And also, in addition, the first reason, the second reason. Many students will say something like, blah, 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 blah. There are two reasons for this. The first reason is, blah, 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 blah. The second reason is, blah, 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 blah. Now, linking words are important because the listener knows you've moved on to another topic. The second reason is the listener knows you've moved on to the second reason. So in speaking and in writing, linking words, conjunctions, help with your structure. Try to use a range of linking words. As I said, the obvious one is and. Try to use others. Also, in addition, moreover, furthermore. Let me just type these because these are really useful in speaking and in writing. Now, when you use your linking words in speaking and in writing, don't use the same linking words. Don't use first, second, third, fourth. Because if you've used first, the examiner knows you know how to use first. Use first, and then use a different linking word, furthermore, in addition. Because you're showing the examiner you've got a range of vocabulary. You're not dependent on first, second, third. First, moreover, in addition, furthermore. And don't forget contrast words. However, on the contrary, in contrast. What is more, besides, yes. But remember, contrast words. Yes, when your conclusion. Just a quick note on your writing, by the way. I'm not really speaking about writing, but just I'm thinking about it. When you're doing your writing, when you come to your conclusion, everybody uses in conclusion. And it's dull. You don't always have to use in conclusion. You could use to conclude, to sum up, in summary. Don't always use the cliched words. Use a range of linking words. Now, someone's typed besides. I see this conjunct, this linking word used wrongly a lot. Yeah? I'm not going to go into this now. But if you're going to use besides, you need to quickly look at your vocabulary book and look at when you would use the word besides. Because I see it used wrongly a lot, particularly in writing. I don't know why. The other conjunctions are fine, but I see besides used wrongly quite a lot. Good. Someone's typed simple. What is more? That's a good. When you're speaking, that's very good. What is more? It's very similar to also. Any questions? I'm speaking a lot today. Whoa. Any questions? Oh, no questions. Okay, let's quickly look at the next slide. Now, as I've told you, one of the techniques which I use is I write keywords. And I put my finger on each keyword and I speak for 20 seconds. Some people might want to make a mind map. I personally find mind maps very complex. Yeah. But you can do them very quickly. Some people might want to talk about this. So the topic is family violence. And you might want to, a mind map is, you have lines with bubbles. So you might want to talk about in the news, psychology, prevention, education, blah, blah. You might want to use a mind map. It really doesn't matter what strategy you use, as long as you have a strategy. Yeah. And you use it to speak for the correct length of time. Yeah. So there's two strategies. The one I use, which is listed keywords, is a mind map. Remember, the other strategy is detailed. Good. Now, everyone, I'm the examiner. I'm going to read a topic to you. I would like you to describe a happy childhood memory. You should say when and where the instant you remembered happened, who you were with, what happened exactly, and explain why it is a happy memory. Here's a topic. Very similar to the topic we've just had. The last topic that I gave was the time when you were happy at school. This is the time when you were happy at childhood. The same topics come up over and over again. Yeah? You would have 1 minute to prepare this. Yeah? 1 minute. Now, everybody, could you just type? What tense would you use? Very quickly, what tense would you use? Very quickly, type the name of the tense. What tense? Yes, good. Yes. Yes. It's past tense. Yeah. How many parts to the answer are there? How many parts to the answer? Quickly type a number. So how many parts? There are 5. You're correct. There are 5 parts to the question. Yeah. So try to answer all 5 parts. Now, just type yes or no. Yes or no. Is this an easy topic? Yes or no. Is this an easy topic? Yes or no. Yes, yes. So people say it's an easy topic. It's up to you. But remember, the topic is childhood. Childhood. It's not when you're a teenager. It's not, childhood refers to when you're a child. Some people, I have got very few memories about my childhood. So if I personally was going to answer this question, I would find it very difficult. But some people have very good memories of their childhood. Some people would not find this difficult. But there's the topic. Past tense, there are 5 sections. And you've got perfect answer, 1 minute, nearly 2 minutes to answer. Now here is a perfect answer. Everyone, can you just read this? I'm going to give you just 1 minute to read that answer. Everyone, 1 minute to read the answer. Okay, everyone. Now there is a model answer. Now obviously that's going to get, well, that's probably going to get band 9. It's obviously been written by a native speaker, probably by an English teacher. The tense is correct, the grammar is perfect, the vocabulary is perfect, it's the right length. That's going to get band 9. Obviously, that's just the perfect scenario. But you'll notice the structure. The tense is correct. Every part of the question has been answered. There's lots of detail. And it's interesting. And the person, when they're speaking, if they answer this in their natural voice, don't give a speech, don't sound as though they've remembered it, they're going to get band 9. So that's what you're aiming for. And people say, oh, I can't get a band 9, but occasionally people can. Yeah. Now, someone asked the question, what if the candidate has no happy memory? Should he or she make up the answer? There's 2 answers. 1, sometimes in the speaking test, the examiner is going to ask about a question, that you simply can't answer. They might say something like, tell me about the last journey you've been on. You might have never have been anywhere. You might have always stayed home. Now, if you get a question that you genuinely cannot answer, you can say to the examiner, I'm sorry, I have no experience in that area. And the examiner is allowed to change the topic once. They can change the topic only once. So if you've got no happy childhood memories, tell the examiner, as I told you, I have very few memories from my childhood. I think my earliest memory is in secondary school. And yet I have a friend who can remember things when he was 1 year old. I would find this very difficult to answer. So you're allowed to say, sorry, I have no experience in this. And the examiner can change the topic once. Or you can make it up. The problem if you make it up, if there are any follow-up questions, it might be very difficult. If necessary, ask the examiner to change the question. Now be careful. Occasionally, some people will, particularly teenagers, they'll say, oh, I don't know anything about this topic, because they think the examiner is going to give them an easier topic. But sometimes the topic might be more difficult. So only ask the examiner to change the topic if you genuinely know nothing about the topic. But yes, if you've got no experience, ask the examiner to change the topic. So there is a model answer. Now, here's your after-class reading. Now, there are some examples of the topics that come up in your test. A person to become your friend on the first day you met. Somebody's parent who you know. These are all very standard topics. So that is there are some examples for speaking part 2. So if you've got some time after our session, take some of these examples, read the question, read every part of the question, get some keynotes on your paper, use a mind map, whatever. Think tense, think detail, and then try to answer these. Record yourself and practice answering every part in a normal voice. Don't use over-complex grammar. Don't use over-complex vocabulary. But get a nice structure, cohesion, and fluency. Use linking words. Put your talk into paragraphs. Practice speaking for nearly 2 minutes on using some of these topics. Good. Well, I've spoken too much today. Has anybody got any questions at all? Any questions? Don't be shy. Any questions? Oh, no questions. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. So have a lovely Saturday afternoon. Okay, have a lovely day. And remember, practice, practice, practice. Because, I'll teach you an idiom. Because an idiom in English, I'm sure you all know this idiom. Practice makes perfect. Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye. Oh, everybody said wow. Okay. Bye-bye. Time for me to go and have some lovely lunch. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.